Good morning, or depending when you're watching this, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. My name's Ross, and as always told, out of Voice Radio. So today, we're going to be taking a little bit of a look at what was played at the Pokemon Trading Card Game World Championships. We have been covering Worlds pretty gosh darned extensively, and I will make a playlist. And we're getting to the end now, but the lovely folks over at LimitlessTCG.com generally, and the lovely David Hockman specifically, have gone and made a Day 2 graphic. So we need to see what was played at Day 2. Now remember, there were two ways to make it into Day 2. Either you had a regular invite, and you earned your way into Day 2 either by 6 wins, or 5 wins and 3 draws, or you were one of the top 16 players in North America, 22 in Europe, etc., and you got an automatic Day 2 invite. These were the best of the best, but what were they playing? Well, apparently the most popular deck, Pikachu and Zekrom. There were 118 players in Day 2 of the World Championships, and 23 of them, that is, according to David, 19%, were playing Pikachu and Zekrom. And that doesn't necessarily surprise me very much. Pikachu and Zekrom was one of the decks to watch going in. You've got Full Blitz, the attack which accelerates energy to itself. You've got Raichu and Alolan Raichu as an extra attacker which can come in and paralyze and all of that good stuff. You got Thunder Mountain Prism Star and Tapu Koko Prism Star to get either of those Pokemon rolling in one turn, and what you had was just one of the very, very best decks of the weekend. There were some lists that did play an awful lot of judges to try and disrupt the opponents, but really this was just a deck which set up big, powerful tag teams and won. The second most popular deck was Malamar. 22 players played Malamar. Now, Malamar's a little bit of a misnomer. There were multiple different ways to play Malamar. You could play it with Ultra Necrozma, a GX, so it would only give up 2 prizes rather than 3, that could one-hit KO anything if you got enough energy on using Photon Geyser. Some people played it with Garchomp and Giratina, which was one of these new tag team GXs from Unified Minds, and if there's any damage on the defending Pokemon, and the Giratina from Lost Thunder helped very much to get the damage on, it's got an ability in the discard, pop it on the bench, put 1 damage onto each of 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, then you hit 250, that's not too bad, ladies and gentlemen. That's not too bad at all. And then some people played it as a non-GX deck with the aforementioned Giratina and with Necrozma. I mean, Necrozma hit 160 if it had 2 Psychic and a Special Energy on. Decent, but Malamar did not rep. Like, literally, there were 22 of them in Day 2, and 2 of them made it into top 32. That's absurd. Malamar was the most disappointing deck of the weekend, and it came down to this. Too slow. Malamar's a stage 1. It takes a turn to get rolling. Then you have to get the energy onto your Pokemon, but you can only accelerate it when it's on the bench. Then you need to get it into the active. It's a turn too slow, and you run into issues whereby you just don't set up fast enough. You don't have the right Pokemon on the bench. You can't get it in the active. You don't get enough Malamar, etc., etc. Malamar just wasn't good enough over the weekend. It was immensely disappointing, and unfortunately, it just proved to not be good enough. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. And the third most popular deck, and the top 3 really did jump above the others in terms of popularity, was Reshiram and Charizard. Reshiram and Charizard is another tag team GX, and it's just phenomenal. Now, this is where we need to start talking about Welder, and honestly, we rarely stopped talking about Welder at the weekend. Welder allows you to attach 2 fire energy to a Pokemon and draw 3 cards. Reshiram and Charizard, it's got Outrage, it does 30 damage plus as much damage is on it for 2 energy. 4 energy, you do 230. 3 energy, you do 200 with a GX attack. Or 6 energy GX attack, you do 300 and go through any effects on the defending Pokemon, which was extremely relevant because Latios saw quite a lot of play over the weekend, and that ability did stop attacks or at least damage from tag teams. This would go right through that. It's big. It's powerful. With Welder, it was extremely consistent. Generally played with Volcanion, which was just nice. I mean, for 1 energy, you search your deck for an energy and attach it to one of your Pokemon. But if you went second on your first turn, you could get 3. That's pretty consistent. Plus, for 2 energy, you can do 110 if there's 4 fire energy out. And that's just really good as a non-GX attacker. Some people played it with no abilities and Green's Exploration to allow you to search for whatever you wanted, trainer-wise anyway. Some people instead went with lots of abilities like the Dedenne and Ninetales, which did give a really good gusting option, meaning you didn't have to rely on Custom Catcher, which was quite nice. Either way, that was a big deck, and it really was PIKAROM, RESHIZARD and MALAMAR. They were the top 3 by quite a margin. Now, there were a couple of others that came around in decent numbers. 11 people brought Gardevoir and Sylveon, which is still 9% of the field. Gardevoir and Sylveon, the first attack gets energy onto the field. The main attack does 150 damage and lets you move your energy around. So the goal here is to move your energy around, use stuff like Super Scoop Up, stop your opponent taking prizes, and keep your energy on the field. This would generally be played with mixed herbs as well for a little bit of extra healing, and you would see people play it with Fairy Charm, and I think this is only going to get better over time. Fairy Charm ability makes you immune to EXs and GXs that have abilities, like Latios or Mewtwo and Mew. Fairy Charm UB makes you immune to Ultra Beast like Blacephalon. We got Fairy Charm Lightning that makes you immune to Lightning EXs and GXs. Remember, it's only ever EXs and GXs, but that will sort you out against Pikachu and Zekrom or Raichu and Alolan Raichu. We don't have a Fairy Charm for Reshiram and Charizard yet, but Reshiram and Charizard can only get one-hit KO using the GX attack, and then they're a little bit stuck. Though in the seniors final, it did take down Gardevoir and Sylveon, so that is one of the worst matchups for Gardevoir and Sylveon. We also saw 10 copies of Mewtwo and Mew Tag Team GX being played. It's got an amazing ability that lets it use the attacks of any EX or GX on your field or in your discard pile. And it would be used with Latios to block tag teams. It would be used with Naganadel to hit the bench. It would be used with the new Dragonite to do huge new damage, or the new Reshiram and Charizard to do pretty big damage, or Makago to do pretty big damage. It was another one of these decks that relied on Welder to accelerate energy and had the answers to pretty much everything. Remember, and I will pop a link in the description, this was the deck that won the Pokemon Trading Card Game World Championships this year. And then there were 2 other decks that were really relevant in terms of numbers. The second place deck at Worlds was Blacephalon Naganadel. You use Naganadel to accelerate energy onto the field. And then you've got Mind Blown, which allows you to Lost Zone as many fire energy as you like. And you do 50 damage for each one that you Lost Zoned, and you can Lost Zone them from anywhere. Plus, you've got B-String to accelerate a little bit of extra energy. Plus, you've got that Welder card we keep talking about to accelerate a little bit of extra energy. And this becomes fast. The reason this did so much better than something like Malamar, when they both seem very similar, using a Stage 1 Pokemon to accelerate energy, is you didn't need to have the energy on Blacephalon other than the 2 to pay for the attack. You could keep the energy on the bench. You didn't have to keep switching in and out of the active to get powered up. And you could use Welder, and you could use B-String. And I think that really was the difference here. Though Shintaro Ito's winning list, and I'm sure a couple of the others, did use the new Naganadel to give yourself ability to hit the bench as well. Bearing in mind, Dedenne was everywhere over the weekend, and the new Naganadel does enough damage to go and KO a Dedenne. Cool. Now, the last one that was really relevant was the Oranguru control deck. Oranguru was your main Pokemon here, and you used Pidgeotto, and the goal here was extremely simple. I'm lying, it was really not that simple. Essentially, you're trying to make sure your opponent has no cards to draw at the beginning of the turn so that they lose the game. Problem is, you've got to win game 1. If you don't win game 1, you don't win the game. Like, at all. Maybe you can eke out a win in game 2 and draw the series, but generally speaking, if you don't win game 1, you lose the match. Simple as that. And that's a problem. But what you would do is you would use Oranguru to recover cards like Crushing Hammer to get rid of energy, or Custom Catcher to drag Pokemon into the active and strand them there. And you could use Girafarig, which would Lost Zone Pokemon, or any card in fact, that's in the discard, stop your opponent recovering them and trying to use them again later. And the point here was, it was a very complicated, hard to pilot deck, but Pidgeotto gave you the draw power, and then Oranguru was here to recover all your cards, and you would just try and stop your opponent doing what they did, whatever that might be. Now, there were a bunch of other decks, but they weren't really played in enough numbers to really mention. We all loved seeing the Behemoth deck on day 1, but the reality is it didn't have a big showing on day 2, and even Hampus Eriksson, who made 6-0 on day 1 and qualified for day 2, finished 2-5, 94th place out of 118 players. So Behemoth was great day 1, did not make waves day 2. We saw that Dark Toolbox using those new tag teams like Mega Sableye and Tyranitar, or Darkrai and Umbreon, but again, that just didn't make particular waves. And then there was some weird decks. Somebody took Whimsicott GX, which is kind of fun. Somebody took Chandelure. There was a Chandelure at Worlds. Didn't do that well, but that's not the point, ladies and gentlemen. I wanted it to be at Worlds, and it was. The fact of the matter is, we had a few decks that really stood above. At Worlds, there was the top tier, in terms of pure numbers, and that's Pikachu and Zekrom, Malamar, Reshiram and Charizard. And then there was a second tier in terms of numbers, which was Gardevoir and Sylveon, Mewtwo and Mew, Blacephalon and Oranguru. And everything else was really just 1 or 2 here or there. Okay, fine, there were 3 Spiritomb, but I'm still putting that in the bottom tier. Nice mix of decks, but really what we learned at Worlds was tag teams are here. And tag teams are the best decks. You'll notice that really the top tier was pretty much tag teams, although Malamar could be played without it. And all the top decks were either tag teams or decks built to beat tag teams. So there we go, ladies and gentlemen. That's what the metagame looked like at Worlds. Shout out to Limitless TCG and the lovely David Hockman for providing the graphic and the information. And now I'd like to know what you think about this, ladies and gentlemen. So go nuts in the comment section, be nice, and then make sure you like this video, subscribe to this channel, follow me on Twitter at TheWasi, and Twitch for some live action at twitch.tv/PTCGRadio. If you want to support the channel, get some bonus podcasts and all that, head on over to patreon.com/PTCGRadio, where you can do exactly that. And please do make sure you're checking out youtube.com/WasiPlays, where we talk about a whole bunch of games that don't even have any Pokemon in. But by far the most important thing, as always, look after yourselves till next time. Thank you very much for watching. My name's Ross, and you've been watching PTCG Radio.